Our next speaker, grounded by his personal paradox, be realistic and demand the impossible. Our next keynote will be delivered by Mr. Mikko Lavanti, Senior Vice President, Mobile Networks, Middle East and Africa, Nokia, who boasts over 25 years of expertise in change leadership and growth. So as they prepare the stage, let's give Mr. Mikko a big round of applause.
Good morning. Good morning. Let me start by telling you a story of rubber boots. I don't know if Mr. Osman knows that Nokia started as a rubber boot company, but this will not be about the rubber boots that you know. It's a story of a colleague of mine, Paul Lynghoy, who was sent in the 70s to Africa to erect poles. He arrived there, and basically there was no cement, like today many times when we work in Africa. He was thinking what to do, and he decided to do what many young people do. He called his boss in Denmark. Boss looked at him and said, basically on the phone line, said, use your rubber boots and shut down the phone. Paul was then thinking about what was this useless instruction. But he did what many of the young engineers do today, female, male. He basically sought out the issue, get it done, went back home to Denmark and said to the boss, what was this? Why did you give me a useless instruction when I had a concrete problem? Boss said, look at me, very nice office here in Copenhagen, big salary. I have never been in my life in Africa. How can I help you? So what's the moral of the story? Why did I want to start with this one? Is that I believe that our industry is in crisis. And I want to come back on maybe 4 things, but I want to start from the people because I think that's one of the themes that we have been discussing here. I want to talk about how does a small company, coming from a small country, from Finland originating, where we usually, I don't know if you know the story, how do you make the difference between an introvert Finn from an extrovert Finn? Introvert looks at his own shoes, and the extrovert looks at Salem's shoes there. So that's where we come from, but we still can compete. Over the last 3 years, we have grown our business in this market by 30%. And it would not be possible without the people who work there on the field and the changes we've done in terms of the culture in order to compete. One of the first things we did was that we changed our way of looking at the organization, going away from being N-2, like myself, reporting into a person who reports to the Nokia Global CEO. We actually started to talk about C-1. C-1, C stands for customer. And we reorganized ourselves in that way that the power, the empowerment, I'll talk about that, is with the customer team who deals with the customer all the time. We, by the way, reduced OPEX significantly. Why? Because we wanted to make sure that the links from the customers to the global decision makers is as short as possible. So I think those 2 things in starting to work on the culture, being more customer focused, started to help us. So this way, we have been able to be more responsible and more responsive and more proactive towards the customers. And one of the themes I use all the time is that if you're on time, you are late. So that means that we have to be able to anticipate what's going to happen next. So my first message on that one is how to deal with that culture. You know, I asked yesterday the question from Fahad about how do you deal with this AI? What's going to happen? This morning I learned a new number. I don't know how many of you know what is centillion. Anybody knows? It is 10 in the power of 25. The latest, I think it's called Willow chipset from quantum computing, coming from one of the hyperscalers, did the work in 5 minutes calculating that the most powerful computer today needs centillion years, so that is 10 in 25 years to do the same thing that this chip is able to do in 5 minutes. So it's not about the AI, it's about the quantum computing and what's going to happen with that one. So why I talk about this is, of course, that the culture, getting the people close to customers, getting them around the opportunities is one of the keys. How does a company like Nokia compete? We heard today about the fair competition. Can I be very critical? I want to be like with Brahim yesterday, my good friend. I think the way operators buy today is from the 90s. It needs to change. Why? Because often we are making so-called competitive situations, we try to buy price. That is not going to help. The value that we are creating, I looked at that earlier this year. So we have 25 billion of profit going into one of the hyperscalers. And I don't think that together in this room we make the same profits. Yet, this would not be possible without the work that we do jointly. We need competition. And we need to make it that way that there is a fair competition. Otherwise, we could not have done the power saving with our software together with Do. We could have not touched the network of STC in Hutch. I don't know how many of you know how much of traffic was carried this year. In the condition of 50 degrees, we touched the network 100,000 times during 3 days of Hutch in order to make that to be the best network, which it was during the extremely important time of the year. We could not do the cloud network services and announcements that we have done together with Do, so I could continue with this. We need that technology coming from two different directions. And I think that is extremely important message, the way we partner. How can I compete there? It's our purpose. We heard about the connecting people. That used to be, by the way, inside Nokia, connecting people, disconnecting families. But today, our purpose is we create the technology that helps the world to act together. Technology that helps the world to act together. I gave you some of the technical examples, but what is important there is not only the technology. How do you think Nokia internal meeting starts? It starts with health and safety. Every report I have to make, every meeting we have, starts with all the statistics on health and safety. It is the utmost important thing that every employee of our customer, every partner, every Nokia person comes home in the evening safe. That is the reason why I have been on the rooftops in Addis Ababa. I don't know how many have been climbing to the 14th floor in Addis Ababa to talk with people who don't speak the same language with me. We are drawing pictures showing them why it's important to follow the health and safety regulation. It costs money, but it actually comes back with a very, very important thing. Ethical business. I had recently a case in one country, I will not need to say it here right now today, where we stopped the business before we started it. As our ethical team comes back and says, we have done the search, there are people behind this company that we don't want to deal with. That is the reason why Nokia is 8 years in a row the most ethical company in the world, according to Ethisphere. There are 3 companies on telco sector who are in that one. That, by the way, costs also money, but it comes back with the values that are so important. Digital divide. I'm in love with the industry. So much that I have my own 5G product. Some of you might remember. I have 5 daughters. That's my 5G, 5 girls. And basically, I see what type of challenge. They are between 25 and 33. I see what type of challenge young women need to go through in order to get into the work life. Much more hard than what I remember when I started my career. That's why we work with young women. That's why we work with a lot of programs. I'm very happy this year in Saudi, we had an internship program like we have every year. 22 female engineers, not a single man. We wanted to focus and we want to continue to focus on this one. We work with the universities in order to bring more back. And I didn't talk about the energy savings because obviously it's given these days that we have to make sure that our products use as little as possible energy in order to have the footprint down. But the handprint that was also discussed in the previous one is extremely important for us. What is the impact of digitalization? So if I would kind of summarize my 10 minutes of speech, people, we have been growing our business by 30% by getting people empowered. And I actually don't like to say that people need to be getting empowered. They need to understand that empowerment comes from your heart. You need to be encouraged to make the decisions in advance on the business situation. We bring the technology and the balance of the technology between East and West in this current world is extremely important. The operators need to think about how you buy. Otherwise, I think that this will be getting worse and worse, from my point of view. I think it's extremely important to bring all these social, corporate social responsibilities into there, because otherwise, I think we might not see 6G the way we would like to see it. Thank you very much. Shukran.